A woman betrayed, a secret child, and a deadly plot at sea. Discover a story of survival, revenge, and rebirth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss our next video. The Manhattan skyline shimmered outside Olivia Brooke's office window, tall glass towers catching the amber glow of late afternoon. Inside, Olivia adjusted the clasp of a delicate silver necklace, fingers trembling just slightly. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her year, her 5th wedding anniversary, and yet a sour knot twisted in her stomach. Olivia Brooks was a woman who'd built her own empire, black, brilliant, and known in New York circles as a rising star. She owned Brooks Design Group, a luxury interior design firm with high-profile clients and a reputation for elegance. On magazine covers, she always smiled brightly beside her husband Jack Hayden, who ran Hayden Construction, one of the biggest development companies on the East Coast. They looked perfect, powerful, the American dream in designer suits and tailored dresses. But pictures didn't tell the truth. Not anymore. For months now, Jack had been distant. Late nights at the office, silent dinners, averted eyes. Olivia kept replaying their conversations, trying to spot where the spark had died. She was determined not to let it slip away. So she'd planned everything for today. Hidden away in a velvet folder were fresh wedding vows she'd written, hoping to remind Jack of the love they once shared. In her apartment's refrigerator sat his favorite dessert, a caramel flan she'd learned to bake in secret. On her phone were 100 photographs for the memory scrapbook she wanted to give him. Today was going to be a new start. When she arrived home, the penthouse was empty, but a note lay on the marble counter. Be ready at 6, dress warm. I've got a surprise. Her pulse skittered. A surprise. Maybe he felt it too. The need to fix this. She put on a fitted navy mood coat and brushed curls away from her face. She added a touch of gold eyeshadow, then paused, staring into the mirror. She forced herself to smile. Outside, the February wind bit at her skin as she descended to the street, where Jack waited beside a sleek black Mercedes. He looked handsome in his charcoal overcoat, his blue eyes crisp, his hair perfectly arranged. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, light, formal. Happy anniversary, Liv, he said. Happy anniversary, she whispered back, swallowing her nerves. The drive out of Manhattan was quiet. Olivia tried to talk about the new hotel client she'd signed, about how she missed their late-night walks in Central Park, but Jack only gave short answers, eyes fixed on the snowy highway. By the time they crossed into Maine, the sun had dipped low, staining the sky in pink and gold. When Jack turned off the main road toward a private dock, Olivia blinked in surprise. Where are we going? She asked. Jack parked, then turned to her with a tight smile. I booked us a private yacht, just you and me, a night on the ocean. I thought we could use some time alone. Her heart lifted. Maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe he did want to save them. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside lay a delicate gold pendant shaped like an infinity symbol. For you, he said, happy anniversary. She touched it as tears welled. Yeah, it's beautiful, thank you. He leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. Come on, let's go. They stepped onto the snowy dock, breath fogging in the frigid air. The yacht, the horizon, waited in the water, a sleek vessel glowing with soft lights. A captain nodded politely as they boarded, then slipped away, leaving them alone. Inside, the cabin was warm, wood-paneled, and intimate. Olivia removed her coat and exhaled, nerves finally easing. Jack poured them glasses of champagne. To us, he said. She clinked her glass to his. To new beginnings. For an hour, Olivia filled the silence, talking about the first time they'd met, how she'd spilled coffee on his expensive suit at a charity event, how he'd laughed and offered to replace it. She reminisced about their honeymoon in Maui, how he'd taught her to snorkel, how they'd stayed up half the night counting stars. Jack smiled in all the right places, but his eyes were distant, roaming the water through the cabin window. Finally, as the sun began to vanish behind the horizon, he set his glass down. Come outside with me, he said. I want to take a picture of you against the sunset. Olivia giggled softly. You finally want photos with me again? She followed him onto the deck. The air cut like knives against her skin, the Atlantic wind surging cold and sharp. Waves lapped gently against the hull. The sky was ablaze with fiery streaks of orange and purple. Jack positioned her near the railing. Just a little closer, he said. Lean forward a bit. She lifted her chin, hair whipping around her face. I love you, Jack, she said. I know things have been hard, but we can fix this. Jack's expression was unreadable. He took one small step forward, closing the space between them. Then, in a single movement, he shoved her hard in the chest. Her eyes went wide. A scream tore from her throat as she tumbled over the railing. Icy seawater swallowed her scream, darkness clamping around her like fists. On deck, Jack stood frozen for a second, chest heaving. Then he rushed inside, grabbed his phone, and dialed the Coast Guard. "This is Jack Hayden," he gasped, his voice breaking on command. "My wife. She fell overboard. Please, you have to help me." Salt spray blew across the deck. The sun vanished completely, leaving only darkness and the quiet slap of waves against fiberglass. Far beneath the surface, Olivia's hands clawed upward, desperate for air, but her heavy coat dragged her down. She fought, her mind screaming Jack's name, confusion and betrayal crushing her chest tighter than the water ever could. Above, Jack ended the call, exhaled shakily, and wiped fake tears from his eyes. "Goodbye, Liv," he murmured into the empty air. He turned and stared into the cold, endless sea, letting the wind dry his cheeks. An hour later, a Coast Guard cutter arrived, lights scanning the water. Jack played the grieving husband to perfection, shouting Olivia's name, clutching the railing, trembling with horror. But deep in his eyes, there was no grief, only calculation. And beneath the dark Atlantic waves, a woman who refused to die was already clawing her way back toward the surface. Cold. That was Olivia's first sensation when her eyes fluttered open again. Cold. That wasn't merely around her, but inside her bones, as if the ocean had poured itself into her veins and refused to leave. She heard voices, low and urgent, muffled by a thick fog inside her mind. Hands moved over her body, lifting, carrying. Someone murmured prayers. The air smelled of salt, fish, and wood smoke. Then darkness claimed her again. It was late March on the coast of Maine. A storm had swept in the night before, tossing the waves like an angry beast. At dawn, two fishermen, Calvin and Roy, found a woman clinging unconscious to a chunk of driftwood, her hair tangled with seaweed, lips blue from the cold. A thick navy blue coat weighed her down like chains. "She's breathing," Calvin shouted, pressing two fingers to her throat. Roy wiped salt spray from his beard. "She's not from around here." They pulled her gently onto their small trawler, wrapping her in oilskins and old blankets. She was shaking violently, her body fighting to stay alive. A fisherman carried her straight to the village's only healer, an elderly woman everyone called Mama Edna. Mama Edna's cottage stood on a bluff overlooking the gray sea. Inside, the scent of burning herbs mingled with warm wood and the tang of salt drying on clotheslines. When the fisherman burst in, Mama Edna looked up, eyes sharp despite the lines in her dark, weathered face. "Lay her there," she ordered, pointing to a cot by the fire. They obeyed, as if the woman had conjured storms herself. Mama Edna bent over the stranger, feeling her pulse, brushing wet hair from her cheek. "Sea tried to take her," she murmured, but the sea didn't finish the job. For days, Olivia hovered between sleep and waking. Fever burned her skin. Her lips moved with words she couldn't remember. Nightmares seized her, waves swallowing her whole, shadows looming above her, a man's voice saying goodbye. She cried out, twisting on the cot. Mama Edna would appear beside her, murmuring low words, pressing cool cloths to her forehead. "Shh, child," the old woman whispered. "You're safe here. You hold on. Your story's not finished." When Olivia finally woke properly, daylight spilled across the cottage floor in soft gold. She stared at the rough wooden beams overhead, trying to piece together the shreds of memory swirling inside her. Mama Edna sat nearby, shelling peas into a wooden bowl. "Welcome back," she said. Olivia blinked. Where am I?" "Safe," Mama Edna replied. "That's enough for now. What's your name, child?" Olivia opened her mouth, closed it, panic clawed at her chest. I don't know." Mama Edna's eyes softened. "Then, until you remember, you'll be Ariana, means holy in some tongues. I think the sea must have thought you holy enough to spare." And so she became Ariana. In the tiny fishing village, news traveled quickly. The townsfolk came by Mama Edna's cottage, peeking in curiously at the woman who'd survived the sea. Ariana. Olivia couldn't remember them, couldn't remember herself. She moved through each day like someone underwater, her mind wrapped in cotton. But her body healed, cuts on her arms faded to pale scars, her hair grew soft again under Mama Edna's gentle hands. And slowly, flickers of memory began to push through the fog. At night, The dreams came back, waves crashing, cold water pulling her down, a voice whispering her name, and then a man's face, pale skin, blue eyes as cold as January ice, a sudden shove. She wake gasping, clutching the sheets, heart battering her ribs like a trapped bird. Mama Edna would sit beside her, holding her shaking hands. "It's trying to come back, child," she said. "Your mind's opening the door." It happened one clear afternoon when gulls wheeled overhead and the sea lay calm as glass. Ariana was out behind the cottage sweeping fish scales off the porch. The wind carried a salty tang that struck her like a fist. Suddenly she dropped the broom. Her vision filled with images she couldn't stop. A yacht, sunset, the cold slap of wind. A man's voice. "Lean forward a little more." Then a violent push. The world spinning, water closing over her head. And Jack's face, his eyes empty, his mouth whispering goodbye. Olivia staggered back against the railing of the porch, clutching her chest. "I remember," she cried out. "His name is Jack. He tried to kill me." Mama Edna rushed outside, skirts whipping around her legs. She gripped Olivia's arms. "Tell me everything." Olivia gasped for breath, her words tumbling out. The yacht, the photo, the push, the ocean swallowing her scream. Mama Edna listened in grim silence. When Olivia finished, the old woman's voice was quiet. "You escaped death, child, but that man, he won't stop thinking you're gone." That night, Mama Edna brewed a bitter tea, placing a small woven basket before Olivia. Inside lay a faded hospital bracelet and a tiny knitted cap. "You gave birth 3 days after they pulled you from the sea," Mama Edna said gently. "A boy, Logan." Olivia froze, eyes wide. "A baby?" she whispered. Mama Edna nodded. "You were unconscious. My cousin's family took him in. I didn't know if you'd ever wake. I didn't want the boy lost to the system." Olivia grabbed the knitted cap, pressing it to her lips. Tears poured down her face. "My son," she murmured. "He doesn't even know me." Mama Edna squeezed her hand. "He's safe. He's loved, but he deserves his mother." Olivia wiped her cheeks, fire blazing in her eyes. "Then I'm going back," she said, "to New York, to my life, to my son, and I'm going to make Jack pay for everything he stole." Mama Edna gave a slow, proud nod. "That's my girl." 2 weeks later, Olivia stood at the edge of Mama Edna's dock, wind tearing at her curls, a single suitcase at her feet.
She wore a long wool coat and a scarf pulled tight around her face. In her pocket was the hospital bracelet, the cap, and a photo of a small boy with her same deep brown eyes. Mama Edna hugged her close. "Go reclaim what's yours, child," she whispered. "But remember, the ocean didn't take you. It gave you back, stronger." Olivia stepped onto the waiting bus, bound for Portland, her heart pounding with fear and determination. Behind her, the sea rolled endlessly on, as if keeping secrets for another day. And Olivia Brooks, no longer a woman drowning, headed home to remind Jack Hayden and the whole world that some women don't stay buried. The train from Portland rolled into New York's Penn Station under flickering lights and the rumble of steel wheels. Olivia stepped onto the platform, a single suitcase clutched in her hand, wearing a dark tailored coat and large sunglasses. She looked nothing like the woman who'd once posed for glossy magazine spreads alongside Jack Hayden. She wasn't Olivia Brooks anymore. Now she was Ariana Collins. New York was the same and completely different. Glass towers still shimmered above Fifth Avenue. Taxis still honked in angry lines. But to Olivia, every corner felt sharper. Every crowd seemed to press in like a living wall. She checked into a small boutique hotel in Midtown under her new name. Her ID was flawless, a driver's license, a birth certificate, credit cards. Mama Edna's network had helped her build a new life from scraps. The first night, she sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the skyline, and whispered aloud, "Liv is dead, Ariana has work to do." 2 weeks later, Ariana Collins walked into the marble lobby of Fennick & Associates, one of the biggest legal firms in New York. She wore a charcoal suit cut to precision, her curls pulled back into a sleek bun. Inside the elevator, she stared at her reflection in the mirrored doors, rehearsing her story one last time. Law school in Chicago, previous consulting jobs, experience with corporate mergers and compliance, a safe, polished resume. No mention of yachts, no mention of cold water, no mention of Jack Hayden. The HR director greeted her with a polite smile. So, Ms. Collins, why New York? Ariana returned the smile coolly. I'm looking for new challenges, and New York has a way of offering those. On her first day, Ariana sat quietly through orientation, eyes down, while partners talked about high-profile clients, but she listened intently when one name came up, Hayden Construction. Jacques Empire. By week's end, Ariana was assigned to the compliance team, reviewing Hayden Construction's merger with a European development firm. She stared at the file on her computer screen until her vision blurred. Every dollar, every document, all roads led back to Jack. At night, Ariana worked late in a spare conference room, scanning contracts, tracing signatures. She wore blue light glasses and typed until her fingers ached. Fake shell companies, suspicious payments, timelines that didn't add up. She started building a digital map, stringing connections between offshore accounts and Jack's personal trust funds. Her rage kept her warm when exhaustion tried to drag her down. Meanwhile, Jonathan Reed's senior partner and an old friend of Olivia's began noticing the new consultant in the hallways. He watched the way Ariana moved, graceful but cautious. He caught flashes of something in her eyes when she glanced at Hayden Construction documents. One afternoon, he found her in a copy room, flipping through old contracts. Late night work, he said casually. Ariana looked up, her expression calm. I'm thorough. Jonathan tilted his head. You remind me of someone. Ariana gathered her papers without answering. The next day, Jonathan sat in his office, staring at his laptop. He pulled up an old photo of Olivia Brooks, laughing at a company party, curls bouncing around her shoulders, eyes bright. He compared it to a recent security camera still of Ariana in the hallway. Same posture, same tilt of the head, same quiet strength. He rubbed a hand over his jaw. Alive, is that you? A week later, Jonathan caught Ariana as she was leaving the office, stepping into the elevator.
She stiffened but didn't turn around. Lev, please. Ariana's shoulders hunched slightly. The elevator doors slid closed. He waited for her in the underground parking garage that evening. When she finally emerged, he stepped into her path. Olivia. She flinched at the name. Don't call me that, she hissed. Jonathan swallowed hard. You're alive. Jesus Christ, you're alive. Ariana lowered her voice. Keep your voice down. Jonathan stared at her, eyes wet. Why didn't you tell me? Because I couldn't trust anyone. You can trust me. Ariana's jaw tightened. I have a son, Jonathan. Jack tried to murder me. He stole my company, my home, my name, and he's raising hell with my money. I'm here to take it all back, but I need evidence, and I need someone on the inside. Jonathan let out a shaky breath. What do you need me to do? Ariana's eyes glimmered in the dim garage light. Access. Financial records, emails, anything that ties Jack to fraud, and to Kristen. Kristen Price. Blonde. Impeccably dressed. The woman who'd been Olivia's assistant and who'd become Jack's lover. A few days later, Ariana saw her for the first time in 3 years. Kristen arrived at Fenwick and Associates in a cream cashmere coat, arm in arm with Jack. Ariana watched from behind a glass wall as Kristen smiled for photographers. Reporters called her the grieving partner. Kristen now lived in Olivia's old townhouse on the Upper East Side. She slept in Olivia's bed, wore Olivia's jewelry, even wore the same perfume Olivia once adored. But when Ariana looked into Kristen's eyes, she saw a crack, thin as a hairline fracture in glass. Krista wasn't sleeping well either. Soon whispers began to ripple through the legal world. Rumors of embezzlement, mysterious discrepancies in Hayden Construction's overseas accounts. Late-night news shows ran segments titled Hayden Construction Under Scrutiny. Are there ghosts in the ledger? Jack started showing up to meetings with deeper lines under his eyes. And Ariana Collins, quiet consultant by day and avenging angel by night, sat at her desk, building the case that would bring her husband to his knees. Jack Hayden stood at his office window high above Park Avenue, staring out at the city lights with bloodshot eyes. He hadn't slept more than an hour at a time in weeks. The city that had once felt like his kingdom now felt like a trap closing in around him. The tabloids had begun sniffing around. His CFO kept leaving voicemails about serious questions from regulators. A rumor even reached him that a New York Times investigative team had started calling former employees. He kept seeing Olivia's face in every reflective surface. The windows of cabs, the chrome fixtures in the office bathroom, even the rippling surface of his glass of scotch. He kept telling himself it was grief, ghosts, stress, but some part of him wondered if she was really gone. He sat behind his mahogany desk, hands trembling, when his secretary stepped in. "This was just delivered, sir. No sender." Jack looked at the envelope. Heavy cream cardstock. His name printed in elegant block letters. He hesitated, then tore it open. Inside, a single line, written in neat handwriting. "Grand Orchid Lounge, 9 p.m. Let's talk about the woman you fed to the sea." Jack's breath left his chest in a rush. His first instinct was to rip it up, to pretend it was some sick joke. But a voice in the back of his mind whispered, "What if she's alive?" He poured himself a drink, but his hand shook so badly half of it splashed onto the desk. At 8:45 p.m., Jack sat in the back seat of a black SUV as it rolled through midtown traffic. His driver asked if he was okay. Jack didn't answer. He just kept checking his watch. Grand Orchid Lounge was one of Manhattan's hidden gems, a velvet-draped cocktail bar on the penthouse floor of a boutique hotel. Jack stepped out into the cold March air, pulled his collar up, and rode the elevator alone. He felt like he was walking toward his own execution. The lounge was dimly lit, all low lamps and flickering candles. A soft jazz quartet played in the corner. The bartender gave Jack a polite nod. "I'm here to meet someone," Jack murmured. "Private booth, back corner," the bartender replied. "She's already there." Jack's mouth went dry. He approached the booth slowly. And there she was. Olivia sat in the shadows, her profile lit softly by the flicker of a candle. Her hair was swept back into an elegant twist. She wore a crisp white suit tailored to her body with a single gold chain at her throat. She didn't look like the woman Jack had shoved into the Atlantic. She looked like a CEO, a predator, a queen. When Jack froze, she tilted her chin slightly. "Sit down, Jack." His knees almost buckled as he dropped onto the seat opposite her. "Liv, oh my God, Liv, don't call me that." Her voice was ice. "My name is Ariana Collins now. Olivia Brooks was the woman you murdered." Jack's eyes filled with tears. He reached across the table, but Olivia recoiled as though he'd tried to strike her. "How are you alive?" he choked out. She leaned closer, her voice dropped to a deadly softness. "The sea spit me back out, and it gave me time to think." Jack's mouth opened, but no sound came. For a moment, they simply stared at each other across the table. Jack swallowed hard. "Liv? Olivia, please, listen. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. I was desperate. The company was bleeding money. The pressure, it was crushing me. And I was in your way," Olivia snapped. "So you killed me." Jack rubbed his face with both hands. "It was supposed to be quick. You wouldn't suffer. And then Kristen," Olivia corrected, voice dripping venom. "She moved into my house, my bed, my life. How romantic." Jack's shoulders sagged. "I thought maybe it would all fade. I thought if you were gone, I could start over. But nothing faded. I see you every time I close my eyes." Olivia's gaze turned cold as stone. "Good, because I'm not here to take you to court. I'm here to destroy you. One piece at a time." Jack stiffened. "Please, Liv. I'm still your husband. We were in love once. You said we could fix anything." She laughed then, a sharp, humorless sound. "Jack, the woman who said that drowned 3 years ago. You pushed her into the ocean." Jack's voice broke. "I'm sorry." Olivia leaned forward, sliding a small black USB drive across the table. "You're going to be sorrier. This is proof of offshore accounts, shell companies, fraud, bribes, and Kristen's fingerprints are all over it too. By tomorrow, half the financial world will know you've been laundering money for years." Jack stared at the drive like it might bite him. "Please, don't do this." Olivia's jaw flexed. "You took everything from me. My company, my name, my home, my child." Jack's head snapped up. "Child?" Olivia's eyes glinted. "Yes, Jack. Our son. Logan. He's alive. And one day he's going to know what kind of man his father is. Jack shook his head violently, panic flaring in his eyes. No, we can fix this. Let me pay you. We can go away. I'll disappear with you if that's what you want. Olivia slammed her palm on the table, making the glasses jump. I don't want you, Jack. I want you ruined. I want your name rotting in headlines. I want Kristen to realize she slept with a murderer. I want your business in ashes. And when I'm done, I want you to sit in prison and remember how it felt when you pushed me into the sea. Jack was trembling, his face a mask of disbelief and fear. But if this comes out, I'll lose everything. Olivia gave a thin, cruel smile. Then I guess you should have thought of that before you tried to kill your wife. She gathered her clutch, standing. Jack tried to follow her, grabbing her wrist, but she yanked free, her voice low and lethal. Touch me again, and I'll have you arrested before you can blink. She leaned close, just enough for her perfume to drift over him, a scent Jack hadn't smelled in 3 years. This wasn't a reunion, Jack. This was your warning. Everything you built on my blood is about to come crashing down. Jack's mouth worked silently. Olivia stared at him one last time, then she turned and walked away, heels echoing across the marble floor. Jack collapsed back into the booth, shaking. The jazz music kept playing, the bartender kept polishing glasses, but for Jack Hayden, the world was already burning down around him. Jack Hayden stared into his bathroom mirror, his tie half knotted, his hair damp from a too-hot shower. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Somewhere in the mansion, Kristen was screaming into the phone with someone from PR. Jack barely heard her. The house felt haunted. Every polished surface seemed to reflect Olivia's eyes. The silence buzzed with ghosts. He tried to steady his breath, but every exhale ended in a shudder. He stepped into the hallway just as Kristen stormed toward him, waving her phone. It's everywhere, Jack, she shouted. Every news outlet. Olivia Brooks, alive, husband under investigation for attempted murder and fraud. How could you let this happen? Jack ran a hand through his hair. I didn't. But Kristen shoved him hard in the chest. You said she was dead. You said we'd be free. Jack opened his mouth, but no words came. The doorbell rang. Once. Twice. Then the pounding began. Mr. Hayden, NYPD, open the door. Kristen went white. Jack backed away, shaking his head. No. Kristen hissed. What did you do, Jack? What else are you hiding? He tried to flee toward the back door, but it was too late. The police rammed the front door open, bursting into the marble foyer with drawn weapons. Freeze. Hands where we can see them. Jack threw his hands up, eyes wild. Kristen screamed as officers dragged Jack forward, cuffing his wrists so tight he winced. Flashbulbs exploded outside the mansion windows. News vans sat parked across the driveway. Reporters shouted questions into the chilly morning air. Mr. Hayden, did you attempt to kill your wife? Is Hayden Construction a criminal enterprise? Where's Olivia now? Jack struggled against the officers, shouting over his shoulder. It was an accident, I swear she slipped. The words were swallowed in the chaos as they hauled him toward the door. At the police station, Kristen sat alone in an interrogation room, her mascara smeared in black rivulets down her cheeks, her hands twisted together in her lap. The detective across from her slid a recorder closer. Miss Price, you're under investigation for conspiracy and accessory to attempted murder. Do you wish to make a statement? Kristen stared at the table, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't push her. I didn't. But I knew. He told me it was an accident. But I knew the moment he stopped crying. The moment he stopped talking about her at all. She inhaled shakily. I helped him burn her clothes. I helped him fake the documents because I thought he'd finally love me if she was gone. Tears dripped onto the tabletop. I thought we'd be free, but I've been drowning ever since. 2 days later, Fenwick and Associates called an emergency shareholders meeting in a glass-walled conference room overlooking Park Avenue. Every director sat stiffly in suits, murmuring among themselves. Then the elevator chimed. Olivia Brooks stepped into the room wearing a tailored ivory pantsuit, her hair swept back in a sleek twist. Beside her walked Jonathan Reed, and at her other side a small boy with caramel skin, bright eyes, and soft curls. Logan. Silence fell. Olivia walked to the head of the table and set down a thick legal file. As of this morning, she said, her voice ringing clear, the court has reinstated my legal ownership of Brooks Design Group and all related holdings. The shares Jack Hayden transferred to himself have been revoked, and my son and I will be returning to our rightful place. A murmur rippled through the room. One board member cleared his throat, and if we contest this, Olivia's eyes narrowed, sharp as a scalpel. Then your names will be the next to appear in the press. Choose wisely. No one argued after that. That afternoon, Olivia returned to the townhouse on the Upper East Side that Kristen had once claimed as hers. Kristen's designer clothes were gone from the closets. The air smelled like fresh paint and lemon oil, not Kristen's expensive French perfume. Olivia stood in her bedroom doorway, Logan perched on her hip and whispered, "This was always our home. They just forgot for a while." A week later, Olivia found herself standing on the same pier in Maine where she'd once stepped onto a yacht, believing her marriage could be saved. The Atlantic waves rolled beneath the wooden planks, gentle but restless. Beside her, Logan held a small wooden boat they'd carved together at Mama Edna's. "Mommy, is this where the water tried to take you?" he asked softly. Olivier crouched to his level, tucking a curl behind his ear. "Yes, baby, right here, but the ocean didn't win." He looked out at the endless sea, thoughtful. "Does it still scare you?" But Olivia smiled gently. "No, it tried to drown me, but it ended up baptizing me instead." She kissed his forehead. "I thought I'd lost everything, but I found myself instead, and I found you." Logan slipped his small hand into hers. "I'm glad you came back for me, Mommy." Olivia blinked back tears. "I'll always come back for you." They stood there a moment longer, the cold breeze fluttering Olivia's hair. Then she turned them both away from the water. "Come on," she said, "we've got a life to build." Hand in hand, they walked back toward the shore, leaving the crashing waves behind them, and carrying only the strength they'd gained from surviving. Olivia proved that even the deepest betrayal can't drown the truth. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.